August 23, 1942, 4 p.m. The banks of the Volga River, Stalingrad's eastern edge. Dust chokes the air like a living fog, thick with the acrid bite of diesel and cordite. You can almost feel it, grit grinding between your teeth, the relentless sun baking the steppe into cracked earth. A Luftwaffe Heinkel bomber screams overhead, its payload whistling down toward the skeletal skyline ahead. Explosions bloom in rapid succession, orange fireballs ripping through wooden tenements, turning the city into a pyre. Below, Wehrmacht infantrymen huddle in half-tracks, their Feldgrau uniforms stained with sweat and oil, carabiner rifles clutched tight. One soldier, a young Gefreiter from Bavaria, wipes his brow and smirks at his comrade. "The Ivans are running like rats," he mutters, voice laced with contempt. "This city's ours by nightfall." The 6th Army advances, a mechanized beast uncoiling across the plain. General Friedrich Paulus, lean and precise in his peaked cap, surveys the chaos from a command Kubelwagen, binoculars pressed to his eyes. Hitler's directive echoes in his mind. Seize Stalingrad, the industrial heart named for the Soviet tyrant himself. It's not just a city, it's a symbol, a dagger to the Red Army's throat. Panzer IV tanks rumble forward, their 75mm guns swiveling toward distant puffs of anti-tank fire. Flak guns bark in response, shredding a lone yak fighter that dares to strafe the column. The ground trembles under the treads, and in the distance, the Volga glimmers like molten silver, a barrier that seems almost within grasp. But step closer, feel the pulse of the men. Oberleutnant Hans Weber, commanding a platoon of the 389th Infantry Division, urges his squad through a bombed-out suburb. Shell craters pock the streets like fresh wounds, and the air hums with the whine of incoming artillery. "Vorwärts!" he shouts, his voice cutting through the din. A Soviet sniper's bullet cracks off a nearby wall, sending chips flying. Weber's men return fire, MG-34 machine guns chattering in short bursts. They mock the retreating shadows, Red Army soldiers in quilted telegraphic jackets, scrambling back toward the river ferries. "Look at them flee! The great Stalin's guard, reduced to cowards," one Lanzer jeers, emboldened by the momentum. The Germans have pushed from the Don River in weeks, brushing aside divisions, capturing airfields. Confidence swells like the summer heat. Whispers in the ranks speak of parades in Berlin by Christmas. Yet, amid the advance, tension simmers. The supply lines stretch thin, over 1,000 kilometers from the Reich, vulnerable to partisan raids. Fuel trucks lag behind, and ammunition crates arrive half empty. Paulus knows this. His staff officers pore over maps in a makeshift tent, marking positions with grease pencils. The Führer demands speed. Stalingrad must fall. No pause for consolidation. The city looms, its factories belching smoke even as bombs rain down. Tractor plants, once churning out T-34 tanks, now serve as fortresses for Soviet defenders. Chuikov's 62nd Army digs in, transforming basements into bunkers, streets into kill zones. Imagine yourself there, crouched in a foxhole as the first urban skirmishes erupt. A German pioneer squad blasts through a barricade with satchel charges, the explosion echoing like thunder. Shrapnel sings through the air, and a wounded Russian cries out in agony. The Wehrmacht presses on, house by house, their boots crunching over rubble. Flamethrowers roar, purging cellars of hidden foes. The scent of charred wood and flesh mingles with the Volga's muddy tang. Victory feels tangible. Paulus reports gains to OKH, his telegrams crisp with optimism. Hitler, in his wolf's lair, nods approval, envisioning the swastika over the Caucasus oil fields beyond. Deeper into the ruins, the illusion holds. Lieutenant Erich Müller, a Stuka pilot from JG-77, dives his Ju-87 toward a Soviet strongpoint, sirens wailing in psychological terror. Bombs detach, slamming into a grain elevator turned citadel. Below, infantrymen cheer as debris rains down. "The Reds are breaking!" Mueller radios back, his voice triumphant over the static. Ground troops capture the Mamayev-Kurgan Hill, planting a flag amid the craters. Prisoners stream west, gaunt Soviets with hollow eyes, their PPSH submachine guns discarded. German propaganda reels capture the scenes, smiling victors, defeated foes. The Sixth Army's morale soars. Letters home boast of the end in sight. But shadows lengthen. Whispers among the officers. The Soviets aren't collapsing, they're drawing back deliberately. Recon patrols spot fresh divisions massing north and south. Zhukov, the unyielding Soviet general, lurks in the ether, his plans unseen. Paulus dismisses it. Hitler's assurance rings clear. The advance grinds on, block by bloody block. A Panzer Grenadier unit storms a railway station, bayonets fixed, clashing with Siberian reinforcements in hand-to-hand fury. Knives flash, grunts and screams fill the twilight. One German falls, clutching his throat. Another claims the platform, panting. Night falls and the city burns. Searchlights pierce the dark, illuminating ghostly figures scrambling through wreckage. Artillery duels thunder endlessly, the Volga reflecting the inferno. Paulus retires to his HQ, maps illuminated by lantern light, plotting the final push. The men hunker down, sharing cigarettes, mocking the retreat that hands them the prize. Yet, in the quiet moments, doubt creeps in, like the chill wind off the steppe. What they don't know, the trap is set. Miles away, Soviet tanks assemble in secrecy, engines idling for the storm. September 14, 1942. Dawn. Central Stalingrad, the factory district. The air is thick with plaster dust and the copper tang of blood. You breathe it in, shallow, ragged, as the first pale light creeps over shattered rooftops. What was once a thriving city of 500,000 souls is now a labyrinth of collapsed walls, twisted girders, and smoldering debris. The Volga laps quietly behind the Soviet lines, less than a kilometer away, yet it might as well be an ocean. Every street is a gauntlet. General Paulus stands on the forward observation post atop a gutted department store, field glasses steady. Below him, the Red October factory belches black smoke from fresh hits. His Sixth Army has clawed its way to 90% of the city. Flags mark captured blocks on the situation map. Yet his voice, when he speaks to his Chief of Staff, General Arthur Schmidt, carries an edge. The resistance is fanatical. They fight for every cellar. On the ground, the men feel it viscerally. Oberleutnant Hans Weber's platoon pushes into the labyrinthine streets around the Barricade factory. Rubble towers 3 stories high in places, forcing the panzers to detour. A Stug 3 assault gun noses forward, its short 75mm barking at a suspected sniper nest. The shell detonates inside a worker's apartment block, showering the street with brick fragments. Weber waves his men on. Grenades first, then rush the breach. They call it Rattenkrieg, rat war. House to house, room to room, floor to floor. No front line anymore, just pockets of death. You're there with them, heart pounding, the echo of boots on broken concrete. A sudden burst of PPSH-41 fire from a basement window, disc-like magazines spitting flame. 2 Lancers drop instantly, one screaming as blood pumps from his thigh. The MG-34 gunner traverses, hosing the window until the wooden frame ignites. Weber tosses a Stielhandgranate down the stairwell. The muffled boom. Silence. Then movement deeper inside. They mock the Soviets less now. The jokes about retreating Ivans have died in their throats. These defenders, Chuikov's 62nd Army, reinforced by fresh Siberian divisions, do not run. They appear from sewers, from attics, from behind piles of corpses. Women snipers in padded jackets pick off officers with Mosin Nagant rifles. Teenage Komsomol volunteers hurl Molotov cocktails from upper floors, turning panzers into torches. A German pioneer screams as burning petrol seeps through vision slits. Night brings no relief. Searchlights sweep the ruins. Tracers arc like fiery rain. Soviet loudspeakers blare across no man's land. Every house is a fortress. Every stone is a weapon. The Germans answer with their own Nebelwerfer rockets, moaning demonic salvos that shake the earth. Sleep is impossible. Men huddle in cellars, sharing dwindling rations, hard bread, ersatz coffee, a sliver of horse meat. Paulus demands the final push. Hitler's daily telexes are insistent. Stalingrad must be taken at all costs. No withdrawal. The Führer believes the Red Army is bled white. Intelligence reports massive Soviet concentrations north and south of the city, but Halder's warnings at OKH are dismissed as defeatism. Paulus obeys. He commits his last reserves, elite 24th Panzer Division remnants, 71st Infantry, to seize the tractor factory and the Volga landings. October 1942. The temperature begins to drop. Frost rims the shell holes. Supply convoys struggle over muddy roads far to the rear. Luftwaffe transport Ju-52s attempt airdrops, but Soviet Yak-9 fighters and flak claim dozens. Parachute canisters burst open on impact, scattering ammunition across frozen fields, useless to the starving men inside the pocket. In the ruins, the human cost mounts. Medics work by lantern light, amputating frostbitten limbs with bone saws. Morphine runs out. Dysentery spreads through contaminated water. Lieutenant Erich Müller, the Stuka pilot, limps back from a sortie, his Ju-87 riddled with shrapnel. He describes Soviet T-34s emerging from hidden assembly plants, rolling straight off the line into battle. "They're producing tanks faster than we can destroy them," he mutters, eyes hollow. Weber's platoon is down to 19 men. They hold a shattered school building, windows barricaded with desks and bodies. At night, Soviet assault groups probe, silent shadows with knives and entrenching tools, hand to hand in the dark. Grunts, thuds, gurgled cries. Dawn reveals fresh corpses in the corridors, German and Soviet intertwined. Paulus tours the forward positions. His greatcoat is immaculate, but his face is drawn. He pins iron crosses on bloodied tunics, speaks of final victory. The men cheer weakly. In private, he confides to Schmidt, "We are bleeding out," but the Führer forbids retreat. Far beyond the city, in frozen steppe camouflage, Marshal Georgy Zhukov watches troop movements on vast tables. Operation Uranus takes shape. 2 massive pincers, hundreds of thousands of men, thousands of T-34s and Katyusha launchers. The Germans see nothing. Their flanks are held by weaker Romanian, Hungarian, and Italian armies, poorly equipped, stretched thin. November 18, 1942. The first snowflakes drift over the ruins. Inside Stalingrad, a radio operator intercepts faint Soviet transmissions, massed engines revving in the dark. He reports it up the chain, dismissed as routine. The Germans dig deeper into the rubble, convinced the Soviets are finished. They could not be more wrong. The jaws are about to close. November 19, 1942, 5:30 a.m. The northern flank, 40 kilometers northwest of Stalingrad, near the Don River bend. Fog clings to the frozen earth like a shroud, muffling the world in ghostly white. You can sense it, the biting cold seeping through greatcoats, turning breath into clouds that hang heavy. Then, abruptly, the silence shatters. 1,000 Soviet guns erupt in unison, a rolling thunder that shakes the ground like an earthquake. Katyusha rockets scream skyward, their multiple launchers, dubbed Stalin's organs, unleashing barrages that paint the dawn in streaks of fire. Explosions rip through Romanian positions of the Third Army, trenches collapsing under the weight of high-explosive shells. Men in ill-fitting uniforms, Axis allies pressed into service, scramble from their dugouts, faces pale with terror. Marshal Zhukov's masterstroke, Operation Uranus, unleashes its fury. From the north, General Nikolai Vatutin's southwestern front surges forward. Waves of T-34 tanks, their wide tracks churning the snow into mud, supported by motorized infantry in padded ushankas. KV-1 heavies lead the charge, their 76mm guns blasting bunkers at point-blank range. Romanian anti-tank guns, obsolete 37mm PaK-36s, bounce harmlessly off the sloped armor. Door knockers, the Soviet tankers scoff as they overrun positions. Prisoners stream back, hands raised, eyes wide, abandoning their lines in panic. South of the city, General Konstantin Rokossovsky's Don Front mirrors the assault. Artillery softens the 4th Romanian Army, then mechanized corps punch through. IL-2 Shturmovik ground attack aircraft strafe fleeing columns, their cannons chewing up trucks and horse-drawn wagons. The Axis flanks crumble like dry bread. Italian and Hungarian units, equally under-equipped, fare no better, their Breda machine guns jamming in the cold, morale fracturing under the onslaught. Inside Stalingrad's cauldron, the Germans remain oblivious at first. Paulus awakens in his HQ at Golubinsky, a requisitioned farmhouse west of the city. Alarms blare as reports flood in. Enemy breakthrough on northern flank! Romanian divisions routing! His staff scrambles over maps, plotting red arrows that slice through blue lines. Paulus, ever the methodical Prussian, demands confirmation. It must be a raid, he insists, voice steady but eyes betraying doubt. Hitler had assured him the flanks were secure. Luftwaffe reconnaissance flights, hampered by blizzards, report nothing unusual the day before. But the noose tightens swiftly. By noon, Soviet spearheads advance 20 kilometers, capturing bridges over the Don intact. Tank commanders like Colonel Filipov push their T-34s at full throttle, engines roaring through villages where peasants wave red flags in secret jubilation. Fuel depots fall, ammunition dumps explode in sympathetic detonations. German liaison officers with the Romanians radio desperately. Situation critical. Request reinforcements. In the ruins, the fighting grinds on unabated. Oberleutnant Hans Weber's depleted platoon holds a bombed-out grain silo, its concrete walls pocked with bullet holes. Soviet storm groups assault at dawn, grenades arcing through embrasures. Weber's men repel them with MP-40 bursts and captured PPSH fire, bodies piling at the base. "Hold the line!" he bellows, bandaging a corporal's shattered arm. Rations are down to a spoonful of watery soup per man, supplemented by frozen horseflesh. Frostbite claims toes. Men wrap their feet in newspaper scavenged from debris. Lieutenant Erich Müller taxis his Ju-87 for another sortie, the Stuka's gull wings casting long shadows on the snow-dusted airfield at Potomnik. Fuel is scarce, only enough for short hops. He dives on Soviet positions along the Volga, bombs cratering ice floes where ferries shuttle reinforcements. But returning, he spots chaos to the west, burning vehicles, disorganized retreats. "What's happening out there?" he queries ground control. Static answers. November 20th. The southern pincer accelerates. General Rodion Malinovsky's forces shatter the Romanian 4th Army, capturing thousands. T-34s race across the steppe, bypassing pockets of resistance. By evening, the distance between northern and southern arms narrows to 100 kilometers. Zhukov monitors from a command bunker, his stocky frame bent over teletypes. "Press on," he orders, voice gravelly. Stalin, in the Kremlin, receives hourly updates, his pipe smoke curling as he nods approval. Paulus reacts too late. He requests permission to withdraw from Stalingrad to consolidate, but Hitler's telex is adamant. Hold positions, relief coming. The Führer, poring over maps in Rastenburg, underestimates the scale. He promotes Paulus to Generaloberst, a hollow gesture. Luftflotte 4 scrambles to bomb the attackers, but Soviet MiG-3 fighters contest the skies, downing H-11-1s in flames. November 21st. Blizzard conditions worsen. Visibility drops to meters. Yet Soviet momentum builds. Northern forces capture Kalach-on-Don, a key road hub. Tanks clank through the town, surprising a German staff meeting. Officers flee in underwear, documents scattering in the wind. In Stalingrad, whispers spread among the ranks. The Ivans have broken through. Weber overhears it from a runner, face ashen. Supplies halt. The last train from the west unloads half empty. Men loot abandoned warehouses for canned meat, sharing grim jokes about Ivan's Christmas gift. November 22nd. The pincers meet at Sovietsky, 40 kilometers southwest of Stalingrad. Tank crews from north and south embrace in the snow, vodka toasts amid idling engines. The encirclement is complete. Over 250,000 Axis troops, mostly German 6th Army, plus Romanians and others, trapped in a pocket 50 kilometers wide. Paulus receives the news at dusk. His HQ is a frenzy of shredded papers, officers arguing retreat options. Schmidt urges breakout, but fuel stocks are critically low, barely enough for 20 kilometers. Radio to Berlin. Army encircled. Request freedom of action. Hitler's reply: stand fast. Air bridge will supply you. Outside, the steppe howls with wind. Sentries peer into the whiteout, spotting ghostly shapes. Soviet patrols probing the perimeter. Inside the Kessel, the cauldron, men hunker in dugouts, sharing the last cigarettes. Müller grounds his Stuka. No more fuel. Weber fortifies his position, unaware the ruins are now a prison. The mockery of Soviet retreat echoes hollow now. The Red Army hasn't fled, it's swallowed them whole. But the worst is yet to come. Starvation looms, and Goering promises miracles from the air. November 23rd, 1942, midnight. Gumrak Airfield, inside the Stalingrad Kessel. Wind howls across the tarmac like a banshee, whipping snow into stinging needles that bite exposed skin. You feel the chill, bone deep, the kind that turns fingers numb and breath into ice crystals on scarves. Floodlights cast harsh shadows over Junkers Ju-52 transports, their corrugated fuselages groaning under the gale. Ground crews, bundled in ragged overcoats scavenged from the dead, wrestle fuel drums into position. Engines cough to life, props blurring in the blizzard. One plane lifts off, laden with wounded, stretcher cases moaning in the cargo hold, their bandages frozen stiff. Another attempts takeoff, but skids on ice, wingtip crumpling against a snowbank. Shouts echo, "Aborten! Aborten!" Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring's promise rings hollow here. "My Luftwaffe will supply the 6th Army," he boasted to Hitler, evoking memories of the Demyansk airlift. But Demyansk was a fraction the size, 90,000 men, not a 250,000, and the weather was kinder. Now, in this frozen hell, the air bridge falters from the start. Only 75 tons arrived that first day, against a minimum need of 500. Paulus stares at the manifests in his relocated HQ, a cluster of bunkers dug into the steppe. His face, gaunt under the electric lights, reflects the grim arithmetic. "We have fuel for days, ammunition for weeks, if we're lucky," he confides to Schmidt. The staff officers nod silently, their breath visible in the damp cold. Outside the pocket, Field Marshal Erich von Manstein assembles Army Group Don for a relief effort, Operation Winter Storm. Panzer divisions from the Caucasus, redirected north, grind through mud and snow. But Zhukov anticipates it. He launches Little Saturn, a secondary offensive to widen the encirclement, smashing Italian 8th Army and threatening Rostov. Manstein's forces are diluted, his timetable slips. Inside, the men endure. Oberleutnant Hans Weber's unit, now a ragged band of 12, fortifies a ruined bakery in the industrial north. Flour sacks, long emptied, serve as sandbags. They ration cartridges, 5 per man per day. Soviet artillery, now unopposed, pounds the perimeter relentlessly. 152mm howitzers lob shells that burrow into earth before exploding, showering dugouts with frozen clods. Weber's radio man tunes into faint Berlin broadcasts. Goebbels' propaganda spins tales of heroic stand, but the men know better. Letters from home arrive sporadically, airdropped bundles that often land in Soviet hands. One soldier reads aloud, "Mother sends Lebkuchen for Christmas." The package never came. Hunger gnaws first. Daily rations drop to 200 grams of bread, a tin of watery soup, and coffee substitute brewed from acorns. Men slaughter their horses, faithful artillery pullers turned into stringy stew. Pferdefleisch, they mutter, carving frozen haunches with bayonets. Dysentery follows, weakening bodies already racked by frostbite. Field hospitals overflow. Surgeons operate without anesthesia, sawing limbs in blood-slicked tents. Morphine is reserved for the hopeless. A young Gefreiter, his feet blackened by gangrene, begs for a bullet. His comrades oblige in the night, the shot muffled by snow. Lieutenant Erich Müller, grounded now, joins the infantry. His pilot's leather jacket trades for a sentry's post at Potomac Airfield. He watches the skies obsessively. When a Heinkel He-111 breaks through the flak, cheers erupt. But the drops are pitiful, containers parachuting down, half buried in drifts. Men dig frantically, only to find summer uniforms or marjoram spice instead of ammunition. Soviet snipers pick off the foragers, bodies freeze where they fall, markers for the next wave. December 1942. Temperatures plunge to -30°C. The Volga freezes solid, allowing Soviet reinforcements to cross on foot. Chuikov's 62nd Army, resupplied, launches probing attacks into the city ruins. Flamethrower teams purge German strongpoints, the whoosh of ignited fuel followed by screams that echo through the night. Weber's men repel one such assault, Molotovs shattering against their barricades, setting the bakery ablaze. They fight in the flames, silhouettes dancing in the inferno. 2 more fall, their bodies dragged inside to strip for boots and ammo.
Paulus pleads for breakout authority. His telexes to OKH grow desperate. Troops starving, air supply inadequate. Hitler refuses, fixated on holding the Volga line. Fortress Stalingrad, he dubs it, ordering no retreat. Goering's Luftwaffe struggles. Over 400 aircraft lost to weather, mechanical failure, and Soviet fighters. Richthofen's 4th Air Fleet reports, impossible to sustain. Yet the flights continue, pilots pushing frost-covered Messerschmitt Bf-109s to escort the lumbering transports. Manstein's relief column advances slowly. On December 12th, 57th Panzer Corps under General Kirchner strikes from Kotelnikovo, 100 kilometers southwest. Hot's 4th Panzer Army joins, their Tiger I tanks, new behemoths with 88mm guns, crushing Soviet outposts. They reach the Mishkova River, 48 kilometers from the pocket. Inside, hope flickers. Paulus prepares a breakout, codenamed Donnerschlag, to link up. Fuel is hoarded, vehicles cannibalized, but Zhukov counters ferociously. He floods the corridor with reserves. Tank armies redeployed from Moscow. T-34s clash with panzers in blinding snowstorms, tracks grinding over frozen bodies. German advances stall, supply lines overextend. On December 23rd, Manstein signals Paulus. Cannot hold longer. Break out now. Paulus hesitates. Hitler's orders bind him. Führerbefehl, he murmurs, the weight of obedience crushing initiative. Christmas Eve. In the Kessel, men gather in dugouts by candlelight. A harmonica plays Stille Nacht. Gifts are meager. A shared cigarette, a photo from home. Weber carves a wooden cross for a fallen comrade, planting it in the iron-hard ground. Soviet loudspeakers blare holiday greetings. Surrender, Fritzes. Warm borscht awaits. Some waver, but NKVD barrier troops ensure no mass defection. Yet. The air bridge collapses further. Potomnik falls under direct fire. Planes land amid shell bursts. Gumrak becomes the last lifeline, its runway potholed by bombs. Evacuation priority goes to specialists, leaving the wounded to freeze. Mueller witnesses it, a major with a gut wound, begging for a seat, dragged away as the ramp closes. January 1943, the pocket shrinks. Soviet ultimata arrive. Parliamentaires under white flags, offering honorable surrender. Paulus refuses, per orders. Rokossovsky's offensive resumes January 10th, Operation Ring. Artillery barrages level positions. Infantry advances behind rolling barrages. The Germans compress into a 20-kilometer salient, abandoning the city ruins street by street. Starvation peaks. Men boil boot leather, eat sawdust bread. Lice infest every seam. Typhus spreads like wildfire. Corpses stack unburied, frozen into grotesque sculptures. Weber's platoon dwindles to 7, their faces skeletal, eyes sunken. They share hallucinations, visions of feasts, warm beds. One night, a soldier deserts, crawling towards Soviet lines. A burst from a Maxim gun ends him. Paulus, ill with dysentery, retreats to a department store basement in central Stalingrad. His staff burns documents, the smoke acrid in the confined space. Reports tally, 91,000 still fighting, but effective strength a fraction. Ammunition exhausted, panzers immobile for lack of fuel. Manstein's relief fails utterly. By late December, his forces withdraw to avoid their own encirclement. The Sixth Army is abandoned. In Berlin, Hitler rages at maps, blaming subordinates. But the end nears. The Kessel splits in two, northern and southern pockets. Gumrak falls January 22nd. The last plane departs, carrying Paulus's final plea. Weber, in the southern pocket, mans a makeshift barricade. Soviet tanks rumble closer, their exhaust plumes rising in the cold. "This is it," he whispers, chambering his last round. The surrender looms, a humiliation that will shatter the Wehrmacht's myth.
January 25th, 1943, 3 a.m. The Univermag department store basement, central Stalingrad, now the crumbling nerve center of a doomed army. Dank air hangs heavy, laced with the stench of unwashed bodies, stale cigarette smoke, and the faint rot of gangrene from the makeshift infirmary down the hall. You can almost taste it, the despair thick as the frost coating the concrete walls. Dim bulbs swing from exposed wires, casting flickering shadows over huddled officers in threadbare uniforms, their collars unbuttoned in defeat. Maps, once meticulously annotated, lie crumpled on the floor amid shattered teletype machines. A single radio crackles with static, its operator slumped over the dials, earphones askew. Outside, the muffled thump of Soviet artillery echoes like a distant heartbeat, each shell a reminder that the end is near. Generaloberst Friedrich Paulus sits rigidly at a scarred wooden table, his once impeccable features hollowed by weeks of privation. Dysentery has wasted him. His hands tremble as he sips ersatz tea from a dented mug. Around him, his staff, General Arthur Schmidt, gaunt and loyal, other aides with eyes reddened from exhaustion, wait in silence. The Kessel has fractured. The northern pocket under General Karl Strecker holds the factory district, but communications falter. The southern, where Paulus commands, shrinks by the hour. Soviet tanks, T-34s with white camouflage paint, prowl the outskirts, their turrets swiveling toward the last German holdouts. Infantry in sheepskin coats follow, bayonets fixed, shouting, "Ura!" as they overrun foxholes. The mockery of the Red Army's retreat has long since evaporated. What began as triumphant advances in summer heat now culminates in this frozen apocalypse. Hitler's grand vision, seizing the Volga, crippling Soviet industry, securing the flanks for the Caucasus push, lies in tatters. Paulus knows it. His final telex to the Führer, sent hours ago, pleads for surrender authority. Troops without ammunition or food, effective command no longer possible, collapse inevitable. The reply, delayed by interference, arrives at dawn. Surrender out of the question. 6th Army will hold positions to the last man and last round. Führer. But the men can hold no longer. In the northern pocket, Oberleutnant Hans Weber, now a spectral figure, his uniform hanging loose on a frame reduced by starvation, commands a ghost platoon. 5 survivors, armed with scavenged rifles and a single MG-42 with jammed feed, defend a rubble-choked trench line near the barricade factory. Snow drifts pile against their positions, burying the dead unceremoniously. Weber's breath fogs as he peers through a periscope fashioned from a broken mirror. Soviet shapes move in the gloom, assault engineers with flamethrowers probing for weaknesses. A burst of fire from a DSHK heavy machine gun rakes their parapet, splintering wood and earth. One man falls silently, blood freezing on the spot. You stand there with him, the cold clawing at your core, the weight of inevitability pressing down. Weber thinks of home, of Bavarian fields, a wife's letter crumpled in his pocket, unread for weeks. "No more," he mutters to his remaining comrades. They nod, faces etched with resignation. Ammunition spent, they fix bayonets for a final stand that never comes. Soviet loudspeakers blare again. "Kameraden! The war is over for you. Come out with hands up." One by one, they emerge, hands raised, staggering into captivity. Weber is last, his officer's cap discarded in the snow. A young Soviet lieutenant, barely 20, searches him gently, offering a cigarette. The gesture stuns him, humanity amid the horror. In the skies above, the Luftwaffe's remnants have fled. Potomnik and Gumrak airfields lie abandoned, runways cratered, wrecked aircraft hulks serving as windbreaks for the dying. Lieutenant Erich Müller, the former Stuka ace, now a ground-bound wraith, wanders the southern perimeter. His squadron dissolved, he joins ad hoc units, wounded pilots, clerks, cooks, manning barricades of frozen corpses and overturned trucks. Typhus ravages them. Feverish delusions mix with the real nightmare. Müller collapses in a dugout, hallucinating dives over the steppe, bombs falling on endless Red Army columns. A medic shakes his head. No quinine left. Müller slips away quietly, one of 91,000 who will march into captivity, but thousands more lie uncounted in the snow.
January 30th.
Hitler's birthday gift to himself, a promotion for Paulus to Generalfeldmarschall, arrives via radio. The implication is clear. No field marshal has ever surrendered. Paulus understands the suicide order veiled within. He ignores it. "I will not shoot myself for that bohemian corporal," he confides to Schmidt, voice bitter. The basement HQ buzzes with final preparations, documents incinerated in oil drums, the acrid smoke choking the air. Officers destroy codes, smash radios. Some weep openly, others stare blankly, numb. Dawn, January 31st. Soviet forces converge. Rokossovsky's Don Front, reinforced to overwhelming strength, launches the coup de grace. Katyushas rain rockets on the Univermag, shattering windows and collapsing facades. Tanks grind through the streets, cannons booming at point blank into bunkers. Infantry storms the building, room-to-room clearances with grenades and submachine guns. German resistance crumbles. White flags appear from windows, makeshift from torn bedsheets. Paulus awaits in the basement, composed. A Soviet delegation arrives, Major General Ivan Laskin, flanked by guards. "The 6th Army capitulates," Paulus states flatly, handing over his pistol. No theatrics, no defiance. Schmidt follows suit. Captured officers file out, blinking in the pale winter sun. The city, a moonscape of ruins, smolders around them. Bodies litter the streets, frozen in agonized poses, a testament to the 1.8 million casualties on both sides. February 2. The northern pocket falls. General Strecker signals, "We are finished." His men, 40,000 strong, lay down arms. The last radio message from Stalingrad, "The Russians are at the door. We are destroying the equipment." Then, silence. The surrender reverberates. In Berlin, Hitler flies into a rage, decrying Paulus as a traitor. Goebbels announces it on radio with somber tones. They died so Germany might live. But the myth of invincibility shatters. The Wehrmacht loses 147,000 dead, 91,000 prisoners. Only 6,000 ever return home, broken by Gulag hardships. Soviet losses exceed 1 million, but Stalingrad turns the tide. Zhukov's trap claims an entire army, boosting Allied morale from London to Washington. Imagine the Volga now, ice cracking under spring thaw, carrying away the detritus of war. Survivors like Weber march to camps, reflect on the hubris. Müller, if he lived, might ponder the skies he once owned. Paulus, a POW until 1953, lives with the ghosts. What began as mockery ends in humility. Stalingrad swallowed them whole, a graveyard of ambitions, a pivot of history. The Red Army rises from the ashes, marching west toward Berlin.